I'm not listening to you, and I don't know why.
Angela, can you hear
Let
us?
me see. Okay, now? Can you try?
Hello?
Okay, now I can hear you all. Don't know what I pressed.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. Great, cut it.
Me? Okay. Yes, I was saying that I think storytelling, it's a way to relate context or everyday activities to a certain concept. So that's a way that they can understand and maybe relate that concept and put it in their long-term memory or store it for a longer time, and understanding when to use that information.
Amazing. Storytelling is a great tool because they will use the new information, incorporate it, and produce things with the new words, right? Either in Spanish or in English. It works perfectly. Amazing. Very good, Karen. Great. Anybody else? I know someone else was sharing information too in the chat. Great. Maria, you want to say something?
Yes, I think that one tool that it's very useful is to use the info. If you use the info, it's probably that you remember it.
Definitely. Great. Rebecca says in the chat, repetition, previewing, and reviewing information. That is great. And then I know 2 other people are raising their hands. So go ahead. Yep, Leonardo?
Yes, maybe exercising using daily life problems.
Amazing. That is correct. So daily life, things, situations where they can do that, great. Diana Marcela?
Thank you, Angela. My recommendation is this. Sometimes I let to the students that looking for a definition of new words, and in a different moment I ask them about the definitions and look for the recuperation of this information.
That is a great idea. Jaime?
Yes, Angela, one of the other things we can use is try them to tell in their own words what they have understood and lead them to the learning process, but by their own experiences and words.
Great. That is amazing. Similar to storytelling, like incorporate that into their own ideas and then explain to others as well. Diana, you wanted to say something? Or you would?
Not more.
Okay, amazing. Great. So to help learners optimize their working memory capacity in the learning settings, then I would like to introduce to you the cognitive load theory, or CLT. Okay. All theories will come with assumptions, and CLT is not the exception. So the assumptions that we usually make about this theory is that our working memory is limited. And nowadays, with internet, we know that our students are not becoming very into remembering things because they got different devices, and it's not very working with the internet that we have nowadays. We have applications that remind us on how to do. We got agenda that organizes our day. Everything is there at hand. So we don't really use our memory so much nowadays, not like if we compare it to the past, right? So that is the first assumption. Second one is that cognitive load, explain the allocation of our working memory capacity. And here is that we don't know where it is located in our brain. We cannot see it, we cannot touch it. So then it's difficult to modify those things, helping students understanding how important the working capacity in general is. So if we think about the metaphoric structure as something that we cannot see or touch, then the working memory and the long-term memory is what we want. The long-term memory is something that we can modify somehow. So this information, or the information that goes between the short-term memory, the long-term memory, and this flow, constant flow, is what we consider as to be the learning processes. So it's not just receiving information, but it's what we do with that information there. Right, so is that flow, the flow that goes in the memories is what we want to concentrate on now. The thirdly, about the theory, they said that cognitive loads can be thought or managed through purposeful design. I mean, like with purpose, our designs, the way we design classes, the syllabus design can help students get a better cognitive memory or theory in general. Like these cognitive loads are not too much, and that they can actually improve in general their memory capacity. And here is where we're going to see some of these things. All of this theory comes from Sweller, and if you want, at the end, I will give you all the references that in terms of like reading and stuff, some other things. So here we have 3 different types of, let me just go back a little bit, of cognitive load. And we got intrinsic cognitive load, extraneous cognitive or irrelevant cognitive load, and germane or relevant cognitive load. Have you got any idea what these 3 concepts are, guys? Any? Nope. This one in chat? No.
No.
Oh, don't worry. I'm going to tell you about, like, in general, what they mean, like what they are good for. So we would say that here, if we put all of this theory into a diagram or into a visual, we would say that the overall working memory, which is this one over here, the overall working memory is a combination of these 3 parts. So we got the intrinsic cognitive load, then the extraneous cognitive load, and we have the germane cognitive load, and then the rest, whatever is left, is our free working memory capacity. So basically, if we have all of these and this is full, I mean, we're going to be in trouble. It's like when the computer has too many windows open, in a moment, it stops working. And it's similar to what happens to students when they receive a lot of information and they don't know what to do with that. Like they just stop working. The brain stops working. So here in the formula, let's say first, we're going to see the intrinsic cognitive load. So as the word says, the intrinsic first is somewhat stable or fixed. It's like the very first type of memory that we have. There is something that we cannot modify. It comes with the student. Is associated with the inherent difficulty of the subject matter. So we'd say, for example, introductory statistical analysis is less complex than advanced statistical analysis. So for example, if we got any introductory courses in our faculties, those are less complicated than the advanced ones over there, okay? Yeah, so we got it there first. Then we got the intrinsic cognitive load cannot be manipulated by us as teachers, either in the syllabus or in the classes. So it's something that we cannot modify. So that we're not going to concentrate too much on that part. Learners' prior experience and their metacognitive skill development could influence the way they perceive intrinsic cognitive load. If a student, for example, has done something before related to physics, for example, they will have less problems compared to a person who has not studied physics at all, right? So this is something that they come, and those are some assumptions that they got in their head. Is it going to be difficult or no? Depends on their prior knowledge, on their experience with the subject that we're teaching, correct? Clear? Questions about this part? About the intrinsic cognitive load?
No.
Yep. Yeah, clear. Amazing. Great. That is the first part. We cannot do much about it, so it's okay. Now we have the second one, which is the extraneous cognitive load. And this one is something that we somehow can manipulate with our classes, or we can help our students with that a little bit. So their cognitive efforts learners need to spend in order to, one, we present a new material, for example, or new information to our students, they need to do some effort to understand there. So to search for information, if it is, for example, a reading, they need to look for information, probably from the questions that you already anticipated, or at least to know, like, okay, what is the topic? So they scan and skim, which are or like two more general abilities or skills in the reading. So they skim or scan for information. They can either think on the general ideas, or they can look for very specific information that you ask or that they can ask themselves. To identify where the information is, specifically what information, if they are looking for a number, for example, then they know, oh, I remember that it was in the second, third, fourth paragraph. To complete the learning task, exactly. So they need to come up with all the previous knowledge that they got, but also like trying to think on how I can complete whatever task you have assigned. This one can be manipulated by purposeful design. So it depends on you, how you arrange the classes and the activities that accompany the reading. So it's not just, okay, I'm going to assign the reading and I will see what is coming, what they are going to pop up with. Probably it's not like the way we should design or assign readings. There should be a purpose for them to read whatever reading you have assigned. And what is what they need to do with that? So the instructions here, when we're talking about manipulation, is that the clearer our instructions are, or the expectations that we have from students to read something, for example, the easier is going to be for them to understand what information they should look for, they should identify, and how they can complete the task. So instructions at this part they are vital, fundamental for them to understand. Students will do better jobs if they understand what is expected from them. So understanding the objectives of the class, or why I'm doing this reading, right? That is important. Is that part clear? How can we modify the syllabus, or how can we modify our classes so students understand what they have to do?
Yes.
Amazing. Great. Thank you very much. Then we have the next one, which is the Germanic cognitive load. Okay? In this part, the cognitive efforts that learners need to spend in order to experience the learning task. So it's not only reading. That is the first part, right? But what are they going to do with that information that they receive? Then we need to experience that. How or what type of activities I have designed in my class so my students experience, and as you mentioned, experiment somehow with the new information. You gave brilliant ideas, like, for example, storytelling or situations where they need to use this new knowledge. And I'm pretty sure you have done that there. Then they need to also think, how can I complete this in the best way possible? So a little bit on how much time and effort I invest and what is the result I'm looking for, okay? And at the end, the learning objective, which is something that we can modify and we can establish. How are we helping our students to internalize this new knowledge skill? It's not easy. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. But the more we do it, the more students are going to understand, and the more they are going to internalize these new strategies, let's say. So at the end, they can have these established in the long-term memory, okay? So again, we can design our classes and our syllables to help the German cognitive load. There? Cool. Maria Paula.
Thank you. I just have one quick question though. I mean, you're saying about how students can internalize what they learn in the class, right? But at the very end, for example, in law classes where they have to learn a lot of concepts at the same time, we can do examples or activities that help them to learn it in a more practical way. But do you have any other methods besides examples, storytelling, or even activities for them to be able to grasp more concepts when it's more theoretical kind of class?
Sure. Yeah. And I'm going to go to that part in a moment.
Okay, thanks.
This part, like that is the practice. But yeah, I got some which requires sometimes a little bit of extra effort from our part. But I think little by little we can make this a little bit better for us, a better experience for the teachers and the students as well. Yeah. Okay, guys. So once we have this, like the overall intrinsic, extraneous, German, and whatever is left for free working memory capacity, then we got at the end the overall working memory, right? Which is something that we need to work. And there are some limitations, of course. In our classes here, when we talk about the intrinsic, as we cannot manipulate this part, let's say this is a balance. So we don't need to do much about it because it's what students already know and their own expectations. But here, these two, we need to reduce the extraneous cognitive load, which is like basically what is students actually being distracted by. And I know now with our current situation, it's kind of difficult not to have students concentrated 100% in the class, but they need somehow to help themselves, like being focused on what we have to do. We also need to increase this German cognitive load, which is the experience in depth, like how they can experiment with this new knowledge that they got. And here I have some other recommendations that we can have there. So this one, as we need to maintain the intrinsic cognitive load, then we need to understand who your learners are in terms of the prior learning experiences. So getting to know at the beginning of the classes what they know, or activating prior knowledge, asking questions like what do you know about this? It's kind of useful for us to not only for them to say, yes, you're here and you're important, but also because they can teach others in a kind of easier way if they already got the knowledge in the subject. Probably they're not experts, but they got something in their heads. And then here, depending on the type of students you got, then probably you may have someone which is expert on that subject that you are teaching somehow. So this person can help a lot in this way of maintaining this cognitive load, right? The learning objectives, I know here, especially we have students, we got different levels, like in terms of their expertise. Then here we need to try to kind of grade the objectives for both, for the most advanced students and the, let's say, lower students. So both of them are covered when we are designing objectives. When we think about decreasing extraneous cognitive load, then instructions, as I mentioned before, giving correct instructions, like meaning clear instructions, is very important for them to locate information in readings, for example. That is today's topic, like reading. Multimedia learning principles to reduce the learner's cognitive effort investment. I mean, if the students need to listen, read, take notes, and everything at the same time, I'm not saying that they are not able to, but sometimes they find it very difficult to do so. Yep, Maria Paula, do you have another question? Or another comment?
No, sorry, I left my
No.
hand. Sorry.
Thanks. No, don't worry, it's okay. So how learners can be distracted by other elements in the learning environment and during the learning process. So I know this is super challenging for us right now, but there are also applications that they can install. You can just suggest the students to install these applications where it's do not disturb, so they cannot touch their cell phones or during the class, for example, especially we need them to be super concentrated on a specific task, like reading or listening or any other activities that we do there. To increase the German cognitive load, then we can apply a variety of instructional methods and learning activities, some of them like what you mentioned there. Providing examples of what you expect them to produce is very important. So you are the example. If you tell them, like, I want you to write this article, providing, for example, the examples of abstract of how they should write an introduction and those type of things can be useful for them, so they know they are following a sample, and it's going to be much easier for them to understand what you want them to produce. It's not copying, but providing clear examples is a useful tool for them to understand that. Provide opportunities for practices and meaningful feedback. I know that one takes a lot of time, especially we have 30, 40, 50 students in our classes. But feedback has proven to be one of the most effective ways of students to not only integrate their new knowledge, but also being able to know what to do to improve. At the end, not every student is perfect. So what we want them to do is to recognize their own weaknesses and work towards their improvement of that, to be more independent. We need to teach our students to be more independent, to do their own work. So using rubrics, for example, is also very useful for them and for us too, because it saves time. At the beginning, could be investing a little bit of time on creating the rubric, but at the end it's going to save time because they already know what information you're looking for, and then you just check like a checklist, and if it is necessary, then provide comments on the things that we need to do or they need to do to improve in a better way. Support transfer of learning from context to context, and I'm pretty sure you do that. I mean, you write different situations where students can be in Colombian situations, international situations, their own families, and context situations. They do that too, and I'm pretty sure you have incorporated those into your classes. And then here, help learners connect with the knowledge-based skill set ability and their objectives, like understanding what is the objectives of this class, and if at the beginning of the class and at the end of the class the objectives were met, so they can also do a checklist. Yes, definitely I learned this, I learned this, I learned this, or no. And if the answer is no, what should I do to accomplish the goals that were set up for the class? And it's also kind of self-evaluation for us. If there is one objective that was not met, so then what can I do to do that next class or in previous sessions, or what other material I can assign later on. Clear? Right? Okay, guys, so another question. Do you consider that reading articles, chapters, and everything, all the material that you assign for your students, decrease or increase the strenuous cognitive load? Meaning like incorporating, is reading effective for people and for you to locate and follow information for learning purposes? Leonardo?
Yes, I do. But I think that maybe we should do a very good feedback, about the articles. As teachers, we have to do a very good feedback, because maybe reading is not only the only way. We have to do a good feedback, maybe.
That is completely right. We need to be very, selecting material. Sometimes it's not as easy. We may say this article is important for our students, but the article is in English. There is no way they can find it in Spanish. And like, to be completely honest, our students in general don't have like a top English level, which causes some problems when facing these type of things. Yeah. Great. Maria Paula?
I honestly think that reading is essential for students to be able to learn, also to gain independence, because they are going to ask questions, to go deeper into knowledge. And honestly, I think that without readings, the lecture wouldn't be complete, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Maria Paula. Teaching students to become more independent and to come from to every class with something prepared will definitely change the classes. I have experienced that, like assigning something to students to do before the class, it's much better than if they come without knowing anything, just expecting us to give them all the information. So they can definitely come with better questions, much deeper into their understanding. Great. Karen?
Yeah, I think it is, it increases cognitive load, but I think we have to be very careful on the level of reading comprehension of each student, because, and I think that's the main part of feedback and having a discussion in class about the reading, because sometimes if we just send a reading and they come to class and they don't see anything happen with that reading, that would maybe decrease their motivation to read again. So, and maybe there are people in the group that do not understand the reading as well. So maybe just graduate how we evaluate or assess the reading process and how we use the reading for future activities.
That is completely right, Canon. Every activity that we propose into class should have a clear objective. And we as teachers need to tell them why we're doing that, and then of course use that material into the classes. Otherwise they will say like, why should I read again? If the teacher is never going to talk about it, then probably the next time they won't read it. Yeah, that's completely right. And then Maria Martinez.
Yes, I think that you need to choose very well the readings to guarantee that they have the difficulty that they need to be stimulated, but not too much to feel, I don't know, incompetent. Yes.
Definitely, that's right. And one of the things that we have here, guys, is that especially when we have readings with a lot of concepts, then it may be frustrating for students, right? So one of the recommendations here, or the tips in general, is to prepare those concepts in advance. Like before assigning the reading, that you have covered in class those concepts. So when they face them into the reading, they are not like lost in the middle of the jungle, you know? Because sometimes it happens. It's not because of the English and it's not because of the difficulty, but probably it's because the concepts are not even clear. Even if they read 10 times, they will get like zero idea of what the readings are. So previewing, and that is something that we're going to see in a moment, like what we can do in different metacognitive, social, like emotional type of things that we can do with the reading or in general with the classes to help them there, right? Amazing. Thank you very much for all your comments. They're amazing. So the reading comprehension and as you said, reading in general is one of the key skills probably in some careers more than others, but I believe reading provides a lot of information and prepares students to have better conversations in general. So one of the things here from Kinshan Swan in 1998, they talk about the mental representations that happen when a person reads. So there are a lot of lexical processes. They need to understand the words and what the function of the words mean, what the author wants to say. Also the memory retrieval, as students need to remember prior experiences, prior knowledge from the topic, and thinking probably about grammar, about vocabulary as well, and also to infer, like to have inference process, because not always the author is super clear of what they wanted to say. Also to make these connections, like what do I know, what did I know, what I know now, and how can I apply it somehow to the context that the class is immersed in. So talking about the strategies, the things that we can do. First, the metacognitive strategies, which is planning, and I know we do it, but then advanced organization is how students should actually read. What is what I want them to obtain from the reading? Is it about concepts? Is some of deeper understanding of a topic I already covered? What is exactly what I want them to do? And then in our planning, when we are doing our planning of the classes or the syllabus, then what is the objective of every material or the material that I'm going to use there? So that one could be one. Then deciding in advance in general, like what is the learning task and how can I ignore relevant distractors? So if I know, for example, my students are going to be distracted with the vocabulary, I can provide the vocabulary for them in advance. So they're not distracted with those things, but they can concentrate on the real objective I have for my reading or for my listening or for the material I'm using there in class or to be assigned for students later on, okay? So that could be, then we have this selective attention, like deciding a specific what language or input and the situations that they are going, so kind of telling them a little bit what the classes are going to be about will reduce this type of anxiety that can be created or this cognitive load because they already know and incorporated this new knowledge into what they are going to read. As you mentioned before, this problem identification, then here, guys, we already know when we read or when we select our readings, here, we already know what type of information students are going to have problems with. When you read, you say, no, definitely my students will not understand this specific word, or they will not understand this concept. So that identifying the problems can help you as well and your students to say, yeah, definitely we're going to do that. On the other hand, cognitive strategies like you mentioned before, working in groups, I think it's definitely important, like grouping, how they can connect this information to all of the information they have. And here they can create, for example, a mind map, some more visual information. Remember that we do have different types of learners. You can have visual or auditive or kinesthetic learners, or all of these different types. And then telling them to organize, to classify, to label the material, to use colors, for example, in the readings. This can be mentioned or work in class as an example. You select one article and then you tell them what things they can do with the reading to have a more active reading, not just reading like I read but I don't understand. Instead, we can teach them somehow how to read, and then using different colors, labeling, writing notes in every paragraph that you find, like this, similar to what you do when you read. So tell them or teach them little by little how to do that is going definitely to increase their chances to have a better reading comprehension. Note taking, I recommend the Cornell method. We don't have a lot of time to cover that, but I know most of you already know what it means. It's just a way of organizing information and taking notes during the class, but for reading, listening on all type of materials, you can use that. Also, intertextual connection, that I think it's very important. Some students don't like reading, but some others really are into reading. So providing other sources that they can consult and they can create these type of things is going to be amazing too. So they can interconnect or create these intertextual connections with other material. It could be a video, for example. So it's going to clarify information if they didn't understand everything what was in the reading, but also it probably is going to motivate them to know more and to investigate more about that. So creating more things. Summarizing, we already use it there, like it could be written or oral summary, as you mentioned in the class, working with the reading in the class so they can provide their own points of view. Using imagery like mental maps or pictures or other visual materials can also help a lot, especially when the concepts are kind of abstract. So in a way that they can represent those concepts in a more, let's say, realistic way, can help them too. And finally, we got the social affective strategies, which is also important. The more connected students are towards the class, the less anxiety they are going to have during the classes, and every time they are challenged with new material or with the class itself. Questioning for clarification is super important. Like when you ask them to clarify, you can use peer work, a lot of that. Like now one person from the class explaining, then you will verify that the information is correct or accurate. Rephrasing, providing examples from the material. You can also analyze where do you find this information and what we do with the information we get. Cooperation definitely is important in our social affective strategies, like working together, solving a problem in groups. So at the end, even if they didn't understand fully, by the end of the class, there is a high chance that they would say, yes, I got what the idea was or what the teacher wanted me to do. Providing feedback is also important. If you see that someone is struggling, that you say that, yeah, definitely this person is kind of lost, take some time of the class. It could be outside the class. I know it's challenging, but they really appreciate this extra feedback on what they can do and provide probably somehow easier materials, so have a backup of material that they can consult before, like, or after. You say, like, definitely this person is having problems with this specific topic, so you can provide like this easier materials for them to understand the concepts better, right? Great. So let's try to do like kind of test. It's not a test. I want you to try to read this information And then we're going to try to summarize and underline information which we think is relevant. Okay? Not reading aloud, just try to read here. Yeah, let me know when you're ready, please. Yep. Have we finished? Yep. Not yet. Yes. Hector, Juliana, Jaime, Karin, have you finished?
Yes, I have.
Okay, amazing. Great. Good. If let's imagine that is one of the readings that we assign for students, which problems do you think they can face? You say like, my students would definitely have problems with this, and what we can do to prevent those from happening. Any ideas?
We can give them a definition of the two types of explanation, and then saying what does it mean, understanding and unification.
Good, amazing. It could be an amazing idea, telling them what they are in advance before they face this reading. Good.
Tell it before, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Discussing in class probably what they understand by, let's say this is the topic, like what is understanding, explanations, because in Spanish we sometimes confuse understanding, like the concept of understanding in Spanish could be a little bit different from what they say here in English. Comprehension, understanding is not exactly the same. Good, perfect. Any other ideas, guys? Or yes?
Graph them, put a graphic of this concept.
Amazing, Jaime. Good, a graph. Perfect. Maria Paula?
I think that it would be good to establish the two main concepts with them, and then through examples try to reach with them the differences and similarities that we're trying to get from the text.
Amazing. That would be clear, like for them to understand, yes, what I want you to do at the end of this is to understand the difference between both. So they can make a parallel, they can make a Venn diagram, whatever you decide for them to do. Great, perfect. Any other ideas?
I think, sorry.
Maybe it's also about abstraction. So
yes.
These are very abstract concepts. So we need to put in examples. We need to construct exercises to do it more a better understanding these two types of problems.
Yeah, perfect. Good, Karen?
Yeah, it's similar to what Leonardo said. Giving examples for each one, I think would be a good idea. And also, well, I've used this I used it in one class, and it turned out well in groups that they can discuss different examples for each concept, and they create one whole example using different perspectives on what they understood.
That is a great strategy to do in class. Probably takes longer And all of this, especially when we have discussions and timing, I know it's kind of worrying sometimes because we got the syllabus and we need to cover certain amount of topics during the semester. And discussions usually take longer, especially these things where we're teaching students to increase their cognitive load and understanding more. Takes a little bit more of time, but I think it's worth it. I think definitely we should try to do those things more often so students get prepared for what is coming next. Also starting from, let's say, simple or more simple text and then starting to make them more complex is also another strategy that we can use. So we start, for example, with these very abstract concepts. Probably they're going to be like stressed out at the beginning. So it could like increase the level of difficulty throughout the semester could be and also a strategy that we can use. Or you increment the, it's like going up and down depending on the topics that you have been covering. It's also another strategy. Like we start easy and then a little bit more difficult and then go again easy and then more difficult. It could also making these variations wherein the reading material could also be a good strategy for you to follow. Good. Any other ideas that we have? Karen, Rosie, Marcela, Juliana, Clara. Great, I have others.
Yeah, maybe it could be a good idea to apply that concept in a project, like an application. It could be.
Great. So the knowledge that they got applied into something that they see clearly and that they can apply to their own context. Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Good. And I know someone else raised their hand. Diana, no, but Diana Marcela?
Yeah. Thank you, Angela. Well, I think that the students look for this type of text, for example, abstract. They can read quickly and deep and obtain information about what type of papers they need to investigate, to prepare an explanation about this subject, for example. They can choose the special papers that help them for this type of activities.
Yes, reading the abstracts gives them an idea of what the text is going to be about. And also, like, especially when they need for investigation or for their own research, they can do that. But also, like, they trying to do this in class before presenting the reading, you can discuss the abstract so that they can say, okay, these definitely are the topics that we're going to be covering. We already know here unification and understanding will be the main ideas. So you can have these prepared for the classes and then you assign the rest for students to read. And if they have questions, they can contact you, or during the class, before starting the class, you can ask them to say, which questions do you have about this? And try to cover them before the discussion. So they already cover what they don't understand. And the discussions can be not focus on what they don't understand, but what they really understand and how they can incorporate this new knowledge there too. Okay? Great. Guys, do you have any other questions? We're just about to finish, but do you have any other questions related to these? I have some reference here at the end of the books that you can also check if you're more interested in this topic. As Karen says, there is another course that you can follow, which has similar information. They're in Coursera too. There is also in Coursera, if you want, there is another referring to cognitive load and how to incorporate into the syllabus that also I can just share it with you. Diana, do you have a question? Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's right. If you leave I'm going to save this conversation. So if you put your emails there, I don't know if Karen, you have everyone's information, but if not, guys, can you put in the chat your emails and I will definitely send you these probably at 1. Great. So if you put them there in the chat, I will save them. Good. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for attending here, for being here, for being so into helping each other, understanding how to do this better. And if you have any further questions, I will be super happy to help you out with that. My email is this one that I have here.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you very much for your attention and your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Wonderful.